Well said, Cheryl. Raising children is a privilege. And it is a pleasure for us this afternoon to have our guest couples here with us to continue and carry on these conversations. We also have the privilege of having Ms. Riza Pong, founder and counseling director of the Relationship Room, to be our invited speaker this afternoon, as well as the company of our audience. So welcome, good afternoon, everyone. Um, Before we proceed, let's get to know our couples a little bit more. All right, so I'm just going to give each of them some time to introduce themselves. And of course, let's start with the couple closest to me. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dennis, and this is my lovely wife, Adrienne.
Hi.
We've been married for 15 years now, and we've got two kids, 4 years old and 7 years old this year.
My name is Esfan. Okay, and with me, my wife Rahayu. Uh, we have 5 kids.
Yeah.
Okay, 18 years old, 17 years old. Sometimes I lost track.
18, 17, 14, 12, and 6.
Six, correct, yeah. And we've been married for 19 years.
19 years,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
You got it right.
Hi, I'm Andy, and I like to be remembered as a full-time husband, father, and a grandfather. The way that I hope to show my love to my family is to leave the world a better place for them.
Andy actually does work. He's in the IT industry. Well, yes, we share the same 4 children, ranging from 31 to coming to 24 years old. And I'm an educator by training, but actually a mom in being. And of course, yes, a grandma too. And I would like to say that the best thing about raising children, well, it's not exactly to keep them at the same age, because when they grow up, they stop being just children. They actually become your friends. So I'd like to say that just 2 years ago, our children celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary with us by inviting our friends to a party.
All right. So welcome, and what a pleasure it is for us to have our guest couples here, and of course our audience and Ms. Riza Pong sharing this afternoon with us. So let's go back to that video we just watched, right? I think there was something that I caught that I thought was very interesting, and it really made me smile. So Andy, part of your advice to young couples was not to sweat over those small things. So for those newlyweds out there, I don't think this advice actually only extends to newlyweds. I think I can also learn something from this as well. What did you mean by small things?
Small things, or rather things, are small because we make them small. So what that means really is that what is small to us as a couple may not necessarily be the same small things for other couples. What I think is important in our relationship is that we have learned early on in a relationship to recognize that respect and communications are key to helping us uncover each other, and to understand what's matter most to us, both as individual and collectively as a couple. My advice actually to couple is take time, in this journey to learn about one another and to just enjoy this journey, because it is important that as you get to know each other, those small things or the big things, should not bother our relationship. So for us as a couple, one of the things that we have always tried to do is to focus on the family and the marriage that we want to build, instead of focusing on the things that distract us. It is like putting the why before the what and the how. So maybe, it is better for me at this time to pass it to my wife to share with you what are the small things, in our marriage.
Okay, so yeah, it's for my husband to pass it on to me now because, I always sweat over the small things. I'm really one of those who is stereotypically obsessive compulsive. I think our counselor will want to talk to me after that. So I think, in the early days of our marriage, I gave him much headache about him cleaning the floor, and still I see streaks of hair around. Yeah, and so, but well, we learned to manage and get over those things. Yeah, and really, I think it's important for us, to look at the relationship more than just the things around us that would distract from that. So I would say that as we grow, we actually learn to become more focused on how we build our relationship, and to actually put aside those things that distract. So actually at this time, I would like to just share my adaptation of a poem from an unknown author. It's actually called "What Did I Do Today?" Well, so today I left some dishes in the sink dirty, and I only went to bed at around 1:30. However, I kissed my baby as she slept, and I held my toddler when he wept. Then I sat and listened to my teen till she would settle, and I made a cup of tea for my husband as he sat at the table. Well, as I thought about what I did today, the warmth of rays filled my heart because I chose to do what I did today. Yeah, so when I share that poem, it's really about looking at what's important and big for us. So at every juncture in our lives, as an individual, as a couple, as a family, we've got to think about the priorities and make the right decisions so that it is best for all involved. And actually, I remember Dennis saying something about making things big or small. So let's hear from Dennis.
Thank you very much. Yes, early on in our marriage, actually, this started even before we got married, and we made it a conscious effort to remember this, that if you want to make things small, you can. If you want to make things big, you want to make it into a big problem, you also can. Like, for example, if somebody accidentally knocks a glass of milk or coffee, and you can go berserk, that's such a big mess, why do you do this, you're so clumsy, blah, blah, blah. And then you end up quarreling and fighting, right? Because you decided this was going to be a big thing. Or you can also decide to make this a small thing, like, or if you forgot to close the cap on the on the toothpaste, or you didn't lift the seat up or leave it down. If you decide that it's not going to be a big deal, you can actually then decide so, and then manage it such, without always trying to look for something to argue about or to fight. So it's really within our control, or at least that's what we have discovered for ourselves. It's really within our control to decide whether you want to have an argument, whether you want to have a big fight, or actually to give in to one another and help to cover each other's mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, I really agree with what Dennis said, and I think also it's a bit of a learning process. I think in the video someone mentioned it's a journey. It really is like learning what irks Dennis took a while. It wasn't like we got married and then I figured out this irks him. And then over time you learn what is small and what is big. Like for me it was at pickups, right? What really irks Dennis is if I'm late, even if it's by a minute, because traffic and it's quite stressful. So I learned over time that, over time, a long time, that really irked him. But in other things, it was small. It wasn't that big a deal. And it's about adjusting and learning what affects each other the most. I think in the reverse for me, like I like the kitchen, and I like to. I like to set things up the way I like, and Dennis learned over time as well that if I'm in the kitchen, he'll stay away, he won't come and bother me, and it's I think Rahayu and Esfan mentioned harmony, right? I do agree with this. It's about finding that balance and how you build a really stable relationship for yourselves as well as for the kids.
Definitely. This is really, I don't know if you feel that you had to go back in time, to recall some of these small things that you've experienced. But it's interesting, Adrian, when you say over time, So I mean, I'm just wondering, how was the adjustment like during that time when you were trying to figure out what it is that irks your spouse, So I'm just interested. So maybe as we are discovering our spouse better and figuring out, how these small things can become big things. So what were some of the things that helped each of you to adjust, into this life as newlyweds? So you're at this time when you're already figuring, right? So are there some tips where we can prepare, newlyweds can prepare themselves for these small things before these small things become big things?
For us, it started off with our intention, right? How do you want the marriage to be? How do you want to treat your spouse? And I remember, like, for us, our wedding theme was love and respect. Like, where if we decide to shower each other with love, okay, and to give each other respect, things would flow, okay, in accordance with that. Then whatever came our way. So, like, if let's say she did something that irked me, I remember that at the end of the day, it's because I love her. I want to love her. So should I get angry, or in fact, should I just help her clean up whatever, all right, that was spilled, rather than trying to scold her or ridicule her, or then, end up quarreling. So because it started off with the intention that, we want to love each other, we want to give each other respect, then whatever happened, it just became a lot more natural. The action that followed is an action of love and an action of respect. So we didn't have to think too much about, should I do this or should I do that? Yeah, that's at least for us. That's how it came about, right?
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I think it's echoing what Andy and Cheryl were talking about, and again, what you were saying about keeping it's up to you to decide whether you want to make it big or small. And the fact that you say intention, I think there's always the intention of what can we do, what will we focus on, right? So maybe Esfan and Ayu, you wanna add to that?
I remember sharing with my wife in the earlier part of our marriage, right? That when we, of course, we will encounter some issues and that kind of thing. Then it came to my mind that when we accept one another in marriage, it's like we are accepting a whole package. And when we accept a whole package, we cannot pick and choose in that package because it's really the whole package, right? And then throughout in our journey to build our family, we also learn to actually focus on the solution rather than the problem. Because when we want to talk about the problem, we can talk until it never ends. Yeah. But when we want to talk about the solution, then we will come together and see how we can find a solution to the matter that is presented to us at that point in time. Do you have anything to add?
Actually, for me, I feel that it's really like what everybody was saying. It's really a journey. We learn a lot along the way. In fact, as I'm listening to the two couples, I'm like, okay, it's something that I'm also learning, still learning. And also I realized that at the end of the day, we both come from different families, different backgrounds, different values. But when we come together, it's about coming to a consensus of what we're going to build together.
For me, I'd just like to add that even for us, over the years, the big and the small things has changed. But I think what is important actually for us is the intention, as what Dennis said, to want to make good our marriage. And we've always believed in 100% commitment. So, the way we would like to achieve harmony is not about the balance, but it's about creating the 100 and 100. How can I actually do more to please her? And what can she do more to please me? And I think when we have that sort of mentality, and the intention, a lot of these big and small things would just be able to work it out. I mean, as I said earlier, in fact, actually this came from a philosopher as well, that he who has the why will be able to find the anyhow, which means that we should always focus on the intent, which is the why, and let the how evolve in itself. And the how will change over time. Be open enough with the respect to accept each other.
Absolutely. Wow, it's a lot of really good advice, I think. And what I'm picking from this is really what we're focusing on. What are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the problem itself, or are we focusing on our intention towards loving and respecting our spouse, and figuring out something that we could do to love each other better? So not let those small things, not stressing over the small things, right? So I think that's really good. But I also realize, and I think any of us here would also agree that a lot of these small things become more noticeable once you just live under the same roof, right? And it's the strangest things, I think. Like you were saying, just putting the cap on the toothpaste or squeezing the toothpaste from the wrong end of the tube. Okay, so, and these are things that you don't realize until you live under one roof. Okay, some of these habits.